Hey everyone, this is MusicTechHelpGuy, and today I'm checking out Arcade, a loop synthesizer from Output. Arcade is really an amazing loop-based instrument, not just because they add new sounds and libraries to it daily, but also because of how much control you have over the loops and the kits. So Output approached me a few weeks ago to do a review for this thing, so I'm kind of late to the game, so instead of giving you just a basic tutorial of how it works, because there's a bunch of those out there already. I want to do a demonstration on building a basic beat with just Arcade alone. So in this video, I won't be using any other instruments other than Arcade. So the great thing about Arcade is that you can really get some deep modulation and complex sounds from the start, and then you can modulate those sounds further, and it'll also synchronize to the tempo of your session, and also you can adjust this to the key of your song. So for this video, I've already got some MIDI data that's been programmed in and recorded in, and this is just so I don't have to record anything in this video and take up extra time doing that. So this is just for sake of demonstration. So Arcade loads like any other software instrument. You just load it as a software instrument. And let's start out with a basic beat. So there's three ways to view your sounds. There's your individual product lines. So that's all these right here. You have individual kits within those product lines. So you can see that they don't all come out in order, the same order as the lines. They come out daily. And then you have individual loops from the kits. So you have lines, kits, and loops. So I'm going to stick with the lines browser. And let's start with something that's like a sort of like a kick or a kick snare beat. So I'm going to use this line, this product line called beat elements. And one of the cool things about all of the product lines in Arcade is that you don't have to download everything. You can just download the products that you want to use. So for instance, you can see in here, all of these haven't been downloaded yet, but if I want to download one of these, I just click on this and it'll download right within the plugin. So that's really cool. So the one I have downloaded already is this 4 a.m. workout. So I'll hit load. And what this does is it loads up that kit on the white keys of the keyboard, and then the black keys of the keyboard apply some additional modulation and modifiers to the sound. So let's check out some of these sounds. So some kick drums, a reverse kick. So some shakers and hi-hats up here. And the other thing is if you play a note and then also play one of the black keys, it modifies that loop. So when you hear the term loop synthesizer right off the bat, you think, oh, I'm limited by the loops. You really aren't, because there's all these different modifiers and modulation effects that you can apply to each loop. So just because this loop is located here on F, it doesn't mean that I can only modify it with this modifier. You can actually modify it with any of the modifiers, and that goes for any of the loops on any of the white keys. So for my starting beat, I'm going to use this bottom note here, C. Kind of a kick with the sort of like distorted bass underneath it. And then for the second part of my song, I'm going to jump up to this clean kick here. And I'm also going to add sort of like a snare pattern to it. It's like a snare clap pattern. So again, like I said before, I've pre-programmed some of these in advance just so I don't have to go in and enter them each time. Now, if I close this out, you'll see back here there's some macro controls, and the macro controls for each product line are different. So let's play around with some of these. Cool. So I like the way that sounds. Let's move on to the next track. So what I want to do is I want to add a hi-hat to this, and I'm going to actually use the same kit as I did here. I'm going to use the beat elements 4 a.m. workout, but I'm going to use this hi-hat pattern up here. Yeah, it's that one. But what I want to do is I want to put it on a separate track so I have individual control over it, volume control over it, that is. So I'm going to load up Arcade here, and then I'll load the beat elements 4 a.m. workout. You don't necessarily have to do it this way. You could keep these on the same track and just individually adjust each of the loops. I just like doing it this way so I can separate the different elements of my song, much like I would if I was working traditionally. Okay, so I've got a basic beat there. Let's move on to some other sort of beat effects. So on this track in this section, I've got something loaded up here. So let me just load up Arcade. And this time I'm going to use a line called Obsidian. These are some real dark sounds. Here it is. And I'm going to use the kit called Agents in Pursuit. So I'll load that up. And there's this sort of gritty, bassy sound in here. And again, I could modulate this if I wanted to. Let me just arm this real quick. But I kind of like the way it sounds just without any of the modifiers. Let's take a look at our macros here. Yeah, I'll pull a few of them up, but not too much. So let's hear what this sounds like with the kick from the beginning. Cool. So next, I'm going to use another Obsidian idea. It's actually within that same kit. There's some strings in here. They're right here. They sound kind of distorted because I have this grit up. I'll pull the grit down. And that's the reason I'm going to separate these into two different tracks, because on this idea, I want that extra grit, but on the strings, I don't want that extra grit. So down here, I've created another track. So I'll reload Arcade, and I'll load up Obsidian, load up Agents in Pursuit. Now the thing here is we're starting to get into instruments that have tonality to them, that have a key to them. So my song is in C minor. So how do you change the key of the loop? Well, you can do it right up here. So right now this is an A minor. So if I click and go down to, or up to C minor rather, you can see that it shifts it up to A minor, or C minor rather. So let's just play this from here. Now, what if I wanted to create sort of like a chord progression or something that changes the root note of the chord? What you can do, what I do, is I use my marquee tool in Logic, and I just sort of break out a section here, duplicate the track, and then I pull that section down that I want to change the key on. Then I can go into that duplicate Arcade plugin and change the key. So here I want to go from C minor to A flat major. So let's see what that sounds like. So it goes down in key. What I wanted to do is actually go up. So what you can do is you can also change the octave here. So I'm going to say plus 12. So that's going to add an octave change to this. Okay, so next let's add bass to this. So I'll load up Arcade again. This time I'm going to use the After Hours line, and I'm going to use the kit called, where is it? It's called Days and Nights. There it is, Days and Nights. So let's load that up. And on Days and Nights, there's just a really basic bass. So what I'm going to do is start this on C minor, like the key of the rest of my songs. I'll click minor, go down to C minor. And the thing is, since this is a bass, it's not really going to matter whether you use major or minor. The only thing that's different is that it'll use the same note if you choose the relative major of that minor key. So E flat major is the relative major of C minor. And that note's actually E flat, not C. So instead of using a minor key, I'm just going to go with major and then go to C. So I'm going to kind of ignore the quality of the key and just focus on the root note. So that's actually a C there. So with this loaded up, we'll just have just that one bass note. So let's say I wanted this to sort of move in a chord progression, much like I did with the strings over here. What I'm going to do is cut this up into 4 pieces here. And I'm going to duplicate this twice. There we go. I'm going to pull this one down, pull this one down. This one's going to stay here. In the second one, I want the root note to move down to A flat. So I'll choose A flat. Again, not paying attention to major or minor. And then this one, I'm going to move down to F. So now what I have is C, A flat, F, C. So I have a moving bass line. And then what I'll do is I'll drag over these, hit Command R a couple times to repeat it, and I have this moving bass line. Now what I'm going to do is put all 3 of these in a track stack, in a summing stack. So I go to Create Track Stack, Summing Stack. And so I can process these all at the same time. And the reason why I'm doing this is I want to put a compressor on this. Just going to use Logic's stock compressor. And then I'm going to apply sidechain compression to this bass. So the sidechain source is going to be the kick and snare track up here. And so what I'll do is go up to sidechain and find that kick snare instrument, pull down the threshold, pull up the ratio, then I'll adjust the attack and release time to taste. And there you go. So that's the bass. Let's add a few other elements to our song here. So the next line I want to use is called modular circuitry. Let's find that. Here it is. Modular circuitry. I'm going to use the abundance kit. And there's sort of like a swelling synth sound here. And depending on what I do with these 3 modifiers, I can get some different rhythms out of it. So all 3 of those are cool. So to record in a modifier, all you have to do is just in the MIDI data, all you do is record in the note that you want to trigger itself, or the loop you want to trigger itself, as well as the modifier for it. And so we get this. Notice it sounds a little out of tune there. So let's switch this over to C minor. Let's see if that sounds a little better. Awesome. I also want to add in this note right here. It's like this arpeggiated sound, but I'm going to add this in on a separate track. Load up modular circuitry, load up the abundance kit. There's the note, but I need to switch it to C minor like I did before. Also, each loop can be fully edited if you click down here. I'm not really going to mess with that in this video, but it's really cool that you can do that. And each of the different modulation or modifier effects can also be edited. So this is what I was saying before. You really do have full control over each of these sounds. It's not just playing back loops. It's playing back loops, but also being able to fully modulate and modify these loops. All right, so I've got this. Let's give this a listen. Let's pull up some of these macros here. Cool. So let's hear what the whole thing sounds like now. And again, this whole beat was created just using really only looks like, yeah, like 3 or 4 different arcade kits. So it's incredibly versatile for creating music really quickly and getting really complex sounds from the get-go. Okay, so that's the Arcade Loop Synthesizer from Output. It's a really, really cool plugin for making electronic music, and it's really a game changer for arrangement and composition. The one thing I'd like to see more in the future sound libraries for this is more synth lines, pads, and keys that are actually chromatic. So it's easier to bring chord progression and bass lines in without having to chop things up like I did here. So that's one thing I'd like to see. Otherwise, this thing's an insanely useful plugin for sound design and composition. You can even load in your own loops, and you can create your own completely custom kits. So you can check this out at output.com, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching.